As you know, the Niagara Peninsula is becoming more and more world-renowned for its high-quality vinifera grape wines. But today, we're here at a winery in Beamsville that's using something different, something completely unique to make some fantastic wines. Hi, I'm Michael Velitis, your host for On Wine TV, the show that brings you the inside scoop on what's happening in the Ontario wine industry. So we're here at Rosewood Estates Winery on the Beamsville bench, and we're talking with Will Roman. Will is the operations manager here at Rosewood. Will, thank you for having us here today. It's a beautiful sunny day, and you've got a gorgeous property here.
Thank you, thank you.
So Will, tell us a little bit about your property here. What are you guys doing here, and what makes you unique in Ontario?
Cool. Well, basically what we have here is about 15.5 acres of planted vines. We have 6 varieties in total here. We have start with Cab Franc, Chardonnay, Merlot, Riesling, Semillon, and Pinot Noir. In terms of the vineyard side of things, what makes us really unique is the Semillon itself. So around us right now, we're actually circled by about 3,500 vines of Semillon, and it's a rare old white noble variety from France that we have imported in, and we just like the results of it. It grows nice, it has a good heavy crop, it's easy to work with, it's nice and gentle in the vineyard, it has a good yield. We've received very little winter damage from it, and makes a beautiful white refreshing wine. And we've done a straight varietal wine with it for the last 3 years running, and people are very fond of it, and so we're going to continue hopefully doing that.
Nice. Yeah. So Will, what else? I hear you guys are also working with bees, and you've been keeping bees here on the property. You
yeah,
tell us a little bit about that?
The story about the bees goes actually back to my grandfather. My grandfather started keeping bees 75 years ago in Ontario, north of Toronto, and then as he passed away, he taught my father throughout his whole career, his whole life. And then as he passed away, my grandfather, then my father took it upon himself to keep 800 bee colonies, and he paid himself through university doing that. And then as my grandmother got too old and said, you know, I have to get out of this, I can no longer do this, she sold that property, and then my father bought this property, and we relocated the bees here as we planted the vineyard. So the bees have been here on site at the same time as the vineyard has been, which has been since 2003. So we've been collecting honey since 2003, along with growing the grapes, which our first harvest was in 2006.
So what about, I hear that you're actually using some of the honey to make wine, to make mead. So yeah. What is mead, and what makes it different than grape wine?
Mead essentially is what we've talked about, is like honey water and turned into wine. So it's literally honey that's cut with water, and then we inoculate it with a commercial yeast, and it produces honey wine. From that primary fermentation, we can either take it and stainless steel age it or put it into oak. And what we've chosen to do is run a series of trials by putting it into seasoned oak. So we take the honey wine as it's finished, and we'll actually put it into neutral oak after it's been completely seasoned, and actually the grape wine's removed as much tannin as it can. And from that, then it imparts a very, very slight flavor of the barrel back into the honey wine. It's something strange that we've actually noticed here, is that for some reason the honey wine can keep extracting tannins from neutral oak barrels that grape wine can no longer actually extract tannins from it. So we're reusing our oak barrels from the grape wine program to the honey wine program, because we can extend the life of them. So it actually saves us a capital cost, because we don't have to now incur more costs by buying additional barrels just for specifically the honey wine program.
All right, so we're now inside the barrel cellar here at Rosewood Estates, and Will, this is a beautiful barrel cellar.
Thank you.
And Will's nice enough to be tasting some of his mead with us today. So Will, what are we tasting here today?
So first up, what we're going to be tasting is our mead blanc. This is a Gewürztraminer. First it's called a Piment, so it's not just a honey wine or a grape wine, it's called Piment. And what that means is that it's a honey wine that's made or fermented with grape juice instead of water. So literally there's no water addition to this, so we're not cutting the honey with water. It's literally Gewürztraminer juice that we start fermentation on. As it starts to ferment, then we throw in the honey itself, and then it'll start co-fermenting from there. And basically what it does is it brings a nuance of honey wine as well as grape wine, so you get the fresh acidity from the Gewürztraminer, and then you get this nice richness that you get from the honey wine or the honey flavor itself.
It's got a beautiful aroma to it. It's got almost like this floralness, but it's also got something very fresh about it. Almost even like, I almost get like this fresh gum coming from it.
Yeah, a lot of people like to call it a bubblegum effect.
Yeah.
I remember one fellow came in and he said when he tried the honey wines that it reminded him of his childhood when he used to open up those baseball package cards, and in there was a strip of wax paper and a strip of bubble gum. And that's what he picked up from the honey wines, because honey itself has a small component of wax integrated inside the honey that we cannot remove without using more aggressive tactics to removing it. But keeping the honey as natural as possible, we remain that wax in there. So that wax gets translated into the final blend of the wine because it's just naturally present in there. So that's kind of what the flavors you're picking up on. And that perfumey aroma is obviously what's coming from the Gewürztraminer. Nice tropical fruits picked at the right time with nice acidity. So those tropical notes are coming up vibrantly from the wine itself. No oak was seen on this wine, so it's all stainless steel ferment and stainless steel aging before being put into bottle. And so that shines through here.
It smells very pure and delicious, and I notice I'm even salivating a bit, which means it's not just going to be sweet, there's definitely going to be some acidity in there. Wow. Such a gorgeous mouthfeel on it. It's refreshed, it's got that touch of sweetness, but it's definitely not too sweet, and it's got an elegance to it. It's very nice.
Up next, we have our Mead Royale. So this is a traditional mead. It dates back to the Celtic times. So we like to say it's a Celtic tradition. And basically all it is just honey and water. So it's about 5 parts water to 1 part honey, approximately, and then it ferments. As it ferments, then after it's finished fermenting, we then rack it into barrel, and then it sits in barrel for about, I think this vintage sat in barrel for 8 months. So every year is going to sit a little bit differently into barrel depending on what the final outcome of the wine is. Because like we were saying before, the honey going into this is vintage specific. So it's going to affect what type of oak we're using and also the age of the oak and then how long it's going to sit in that oak as well. So as you can tell, just instantly from the nose, it loses that tropical fruit structure and the tropical florality that we found with the Mead Blanc because that floral notes are no longer present. That wasn't there as a building blocks to ferment the wine with. So now we have just a pure honey source. And there is some florality in it, but it's much more faint and you have to search for it. And that florality comes from the natural honey itself because the honey will have some florality to it just based on the natural region and what the bees will extract from the region itself. But it smells a lot more like straight honey to me.
It does, yeah.
And I get a little bit
It's gorgeous too. It still smells very fresh and very lean. It doesn't smell like just sugar.
Yeah, and I get some nice toasted notes as well, and that's coming in from the barrel. We get some toasted caramel and toasted butterscotch and maybe almost some toasted vanilla bean. And those come in nicely, and I like the integration that the oak has. And that's something that is somewhat different as well that we're doing here is that we're writing a new chapter in oak aging with honey wines because there hasn't been a lot of documented history with honey wine being put into oak vessels or oak barrels. And so we're doing a lot of research, and that's where we were talking about before, where we have honey wine sitting in here for a 5 and 10 year program. So after 5 and 10 years, we're going to see how those wines have matured in barrel and what they're going to actually do to the wine after sitting in the oak for so long.
And sorry, I'm just finishing a sip there, and it's got this great smoothness, this great creamy texture, but a nice clean finish and very pleasant on the finish there. It's a very nice finish, I like that. As we discovered here today at Rosewood Estates Winery in Beamsville, Ontario, that you can make great wines with things other than just grapes. We tried some of their meads, which are their wines made with pure honey. These wines are delicious, very aromatic, and they go with a wide range of foods. So for On Wine TV, I'm Michael Vlaitis. Thanks for joining us.